What's up guys, the ones who are back again with another Pokemon Mega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire speculation video. This isn't really speculation, it's more of a comparison video. Now, we're looking at two Pokemon in particular in today's episode. We're looking at Rayquaza and we're looking at Zygarde. Now, two Pokemon that at first glances they're similar in sort of in certain aspects, but they're more similar than you might actually think or see at first. So, let's sort of analyse them a bit deeper. First off, we have Rayquaza and Zygarde. Rayquaza is a dragon flying type and Zygarde is a dragon ground type. So you see they're both dragon types, one of them being a flying type, one of them being a ground type. So there we sort of say, okay, one of them's flying, one's ground, so they're opposite. They're also both 4 times weak to ice type moves, so that's not really anything in particular, but it's sort of just a thing I just want to point out there. But yeah, we have flying, we have ground, so it's sort of the two opposites. Zygarde's on the ground, Rayquaza is up in the air. As also, you know, they have a similar body shape, both being snake-like Pokemon. They also have a similar colouring in some sort of senses, both green, or primarily green. Zygarde has then got black to it, and Rayquaza has some black to it in the markings. But apart from that, not much really. Then we move on to the really nitty-gritty stuff here, the abilities. Rayquaza's ability is Airlock, which eliminates weather effects, and Zygarde's ability is Aura Break, which reverses aura abilities. So looking at Airlock, obviously it eliminates weather effects, and what two Pokemon do we have associated with Rayquaza that obviously have weather effects towards the centre of their being? We have Kyogre, we have Groudon. Kyogre with Drizzle, Groudon with Drought. So it eliminates the weather effects, so basically it cancels out Kyogre and Groudon's abilities. It doesn't cancel out the rain, it just cancels out the effects they have, so basically, you know, it does pretty much cancel out the weather. It's like there's no weather there. So then we have Zygarde, who reverses aura abilities. Now Xerneas and Yveltal have two abilities, Fairy Aura, and I'm pretty sure it's called Dark Aura. So instead of just cancelling them out like Zygarde Gyarados, like Rayquaza's does, it actually reverses them. So instead of increasing Fairy type and Dark type moves respectively, it actually decreases them. So it's basically the same. Rayquaza cancels out the abilities for Kyogre and Groudon. Zygarde cancels out the abilities for Xerneas and Yveltal and actually sort of makes them worse and whatnot. So this also relates to the fact that they are trio masters of both trios, Rayquaza, Kyogre, Groudon, Zygarde, Xerneas, Yveltal. So they're very similar in that aspect, sort of they're both trio masters, they can both sort of cancel out the abilities of the other Pokemon in their trio, and sort of, I guess, obviously we know Rayquaza actually calms down Groudon and Kyogre, whatever, so Zygarde we can assume does a similar thing. So now if we move on to looking at some other aspects of Rayquaza and Zygarde, we're looking at the Pokédex entries. Rayquaza's Pokédex entry tells us that it lives in the ozone layer and that it descends to the ground if Kyogre and Groudon ever fight. And Zygarde's tells us it lives deep in a cave, and when the Kalos region's ecosystem falls into disarray, it appears and reveals its secret power. So looking at Rayquaza first, obviously it lives in the ozone layer, that's up in the sky. Zygarde lives deep in a cave, that's deep underground. So again, two opposites, as I said with the flying and ground type. Rayquaza is up high in the sky, Zygarde is deep underground. Then descends to the ground if Kyogre and Groudon ever fight. So basically, if those two Pokemon ever sort of cause a ruckus and fight or whatever, as you see in Pokemon Emerald, it's going to fly down and it's going to calm them and it's going to stop it. Now Zygarde's sort of slightly different. It says when the ecosystem falls into disarray, it appears and reveals its secret power. We can assume the secret power is something to calm the ecosystem or something to that effect. You know, I don't know exactly what you would call it, you know, but we can assume it's something like that. When the ecosystem falls into disarray, now this could be construed as several different things. You could think it was, you know, sort of like a, what do you call it, like you know, burning, if the environment is being destroyed. This is certainly what Zygarde does if they're cutting down trees everywhere or something like that, and then there's not enough trees or something to that effect. Zygarde is most likely going to appear and sort this out. But it could also be sort of, you know, construed in a different way. Ecosystem, this is the whole ecosystem. This is the plants, the trees, the environment, the animals, the Pokemon, the people, pretty much. So we have two Pokemon related to Zygarde, Xerneas and Yveltal. Xerneas is the life Pokemon, Yveltal is the destruction Pokemon. Now, say for some of these two, Xerneas and Yveltal obviously keep the world in balance, you know? Xerneas is the one that gives life, Yveltal is the one that destroys life, takes them away. Whatever. So say these two had a fight or something happened to one of them, and for example Xerneas took priority, or you know, became more powerful than Yveltal, as it would be because it's super effective against Yveltal, but that's a different issue entirely. Say that happened, it would then be stronger, and life would overpower death, so you get less Pokemon and people dying and more people living. Sort of, I guess, what you can see in X and Y, as sort of Lysandra points out that there's too many people. Something that affects. So then that could be that, or it could be the other way around, where Yveltal overpowers it and keeps killing too many people. So that sort of, harms the ecosystem, especially if it's just a certain population of something. So, if it's the birds, if it's too many birds, they're going to kill the fish. There's not going to fit fish people eat. Something that affect. The ecosystem is going to be damaged somehow. So Zygarde could come up. Obviously, Aura Break is its ability. We can assume Aura Break is sort of similar to its secret power. So it comes up the ground and it'll make peace between Xerneas and Yveltal and put them back to a state of calm, a state of balance. At least that's what I'm getting from it. So very similar. Rayquaza calms down Kyogre, and Groudon makes a nice balance between the sea and the land. And then obviously Rayquaza, I keep getting confused between them. Zygarde will calm down life and death. So very similar in that sense. Finally, we're going to be looking at the basis and the inspiration for both these Pokemon, and again they have very similar backstories. So the basis for Rayquaza, I keep getting them confused for some reason. Rayquaza is based on a Hebrew legend, and it's based on Ziz. Ziz is the counterpart to Behemoth and Leviathan. Behemoth is based off of Groudon is based off of Behemoth. Kyogre is based off Leviathan. I guess that's how you say it. And obviously Rayquaza is based off of Ziz there. So again, sort of similar to that there. Ziz actually is the one that sort of calms Behemoth and Leviathan and sets them to sort of rest or whatever in the Hebrew legend. Zygarde, on the other hand, as many of you would have heard in my previous videos about this topic, or other videos, or other topics, or what I don't even know, is based out of Norse mythology. It's based on Nidhogger or Jormungandr. I don't know how to say them exactly. And it's part of the Midgard. I think it's called the tree, which is called Yggdrasil, and Nidhogger is Jormungandr. I'm pretty sure Nidhogger is a snake though. They're both snakes that go in the roots, and they will chew on the roots of the tree or whatever. And then that's along with an eagle and some stags, an eagle being at the top of the tree and some stags sort of resting around the centre, which are Yveltal and Xerneas respectively. Obviously not exact bases, because Yveltal is not exactly an eagle, but very similar, and obviously Xerneas is not 4 stags, it's 1 stag, but its antlers sort of represent 4 stags in that sense. So, again, so very similar here, sort of Zygarde sort of works in there, and so does Rayquaza with its bunch, along those lines at least. So, what have we established here? That Rayquaza and Zygarde are 2 very similar Pokemon. Very similar indeed. What could this mean though? Well, I guess it makes sense that we have the home remakes and X and Y in the same generation, sort of. 2 very similar trios, based off very similar things, with 2 very similar trio masters. It would certainly make sense to have them in the same generation, but it also could sort of bring in some other things, other aspects as well. We could possibly, I'm not saying we're going to see Zygarde in Pokemon Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire at all, because obviously, as people will mention in the comments, they're full remakes, so not going to happen, nothing's going to happen in there at all. But maybe in the remake of Pokemon Z, we could then see, maybe if Rayquaza is not available in Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, we could see Rayquaza appear in Pokemon Z, or whatever remakes we get there. Because then it could sort of have a role along with Zygarde. Maybe Zygarde and Rayquaza are sort of the 2 Pokemon that keep the world in check. Rayquaza sort of manages, I guess, the weather, I think is it the stratosphere, the atmosphere, the stratosphere, keeps the rain and the sun sort of at bay, I guess you could say. Whereas Zygarde sort of manages what's happening down on the ground, manages all the people, all the Pokemon, whatever. So it's sort of, they're intertwined obviously, because Groudon goes underground and whatever. But Zygarde manages the land, Rayquaza manages the air, which makes a lot of sense to be fair. So maybe we could see a possible link drawn in, maybe in Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, maybe in Pokemon Z, who knows, or maybe even in a future game where, maybe the whole of the world is dying or whatever, and we have to get both Rayquaza and Zygarde to sort of help us out and restore the world to its proper balance. But, I don't really have any solid theories on how exactly they would be intertwined with Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire. I just wanted to point out the very intertwined differences similarities between Rayquaza and what's that thing called? Zygarde, that's the one. I can't remember the name of it, man. But yeah, I thought I'd just mention the details, point them out to you, and I want to get your guys' opinions. Do you think there's going to be any links drawn between Rayquaza and Zygarde in the future games? Maybe in a Mega Ruby Alpha Sapphire, I doubt that though, just throwing it out there. Maybe in Pokemon Z, maybe, you know, something like that. Maybe if Rayquaza is not available in the remakes, maybe it'll be available in Pokemon Z instead, and you have to get both Zygarde and Rayquaza. Maybe Pokemon Z will even be based on both of them, because, you know, a lot of people have been begging for a Pokemon Emerald remake as well as sort of Ruby and Sapphire sort of thing. Maybe they could combine Pokemon Emerald with Pokemon Z, because both these Pokemon can look like a Z when they're sort of made together. Or maybe have Pokemon Z, I don't know, Pokemon ZX, and then Pokemon ZY, one of them being with Zygarde, one of them being Rayquaza. That would be interesting to see. Anyway guys, let me know what you think in the comments section below. Let me think, you know, what I've said exactly. Will they be related in the future? Will possibly they be related in a game in the future? It would make sense in my opinion, but I want to know what you guys think. Let me know down in the comment section below, guys. I'll be seeing you next time. Thanks for watching. Also, don't forget to drop a like. And that's it. Goodbye, my friends.